Okay, let's get started. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. So, guys, welcome to day six MuleSoft training. Okay, and I will simply start with safe harbor statement. So, both host and speaker the organizing this meetup in the individual capacity only. We are not representing any organization here. The presentation is strictly for learning purpose. We are not holding any responsibility that same solution will work for your business requirement. You have to do your own evaluations. The presentation is not meant for any promotional activities. It is strictly for the learning purpose. We will going to upload the recording on the event page within 24 hours. I think it happens in 2 hours only. Question can you can submit the question at any time. You can make the session as interactive as possible. We are not getting much feedback from you. I request everyone after once the meetup is complete, you will receive the where you will get a feedback link. So please try to provide the feedback on that particular link. It help us in improving in the future meetup. Okay. The speaker for this meetup is Jitendra, and the moderator is Jitendra and Abhishek. Okay. So I have already covered this slide. I will not go with day one, day two, day three. What we have covered on day five, I'll just talk about that. So on day five, we just covered about talk about batch processing. We have talked about for each and the parallel for each in deep, right? So where we have seen like how we can use the for each and the parallel for each. We started implementing the process API. Today's session, like we will talk more about mules of batch processing, like error handling in the batch processing. We'll talk about the scatter gather and we will talk about the orchestrating a process API, right? So these are the things we're going to cover on the day six training. Okay. So we already talk about the batch processing. As you know, like batch processing is kind of like read the data and load the data into some system. So basically it's kind of ETL, extract, transform and load. So it read the data, it transform the data and then it load the data basically, right? So it can process the thousand of records basically, right? So even like if you have a huge amount of data or large data set, right? So you can use this batch processing to process the data in more efficient manner in the more organized way, right? So in batch process we already discussed there are multiple ways, like either you can process the one record at a time, or even you can aggregate the record and the process those, right? And there are like we also talk about something called batch size and like max concurrency. So how you can enable parallelism in the batch processing, how you can define the batch size, right? We're going to talk more about the batch size and the max concurrency, right? So MuleSoft automatically take your big data list, it break into the individual record, right? Process is each record in the small group, finish all of them, even if some fail. So I told you there's a one setting, right? So even if some record got failed in between, we should not stop the job. The job should continuously runs basically, right? So that is what we have discussed in last session. So there are generally like if you see in batch processing there are some phases. So input phase is nothing like it take the data and it split the payload into individual record, right? So simply if I open the my Anypoint Studio, so here as I see like here this particular step, right, we have created like your like 1 minute. This is my batch processing, not let me go to my yeah. So here see here this is particular we are getting the data from listener, right? So http listener, and this is a transform message. This is splitting the record basically. The record gets split here, right? So that is nothing, that is the input phase, right? Okay. So let me talk about second phase, load and dispatch phase. So it will organize the record into group and chunks. Okay, and this group are sent to the worker or threads for the processing. It may create a batch of 100 record at a time and send them to the process in the parallel, basically, right? So here again, if you go here, so this particular and when once the record come into the batch step, right? It's nothing is it's a load and dispatch. So where we have a we just do some kind of transformation and then we have a aggregation where we do the data aggregation and send to some end systems basically, right? So this is nothing, it's a load and dispatch phase. Then we have a process phase, like that is nothing like where we are sending our data to some end system to create the record in the end system. Basically, we call some connector. Each record goes through step by step, right? So that is what we validate, transform, and save to the database or any other system. On complete phase, basically last phase. Okay. So if you see on complete phase, right? This is a on complete phase. So where like we get the report. So how many record has been successfully processed and how many record has been failed. So those kind of information we get on the on complete record basically. So these are the few phases of batch processing basically. Okay. In short, like input basically split the big data individual record, load and dispatch basically group the record and prepare for the processing. Process basically it is finally like once it transform the data and send to some end systems. On complete, it is a phase where we get the report. So how many record has been successfully processed? It's kind of we get the summary of record got processed. Okay, there are some key component. We have a batch job. So, like if you see what is a batch job, basically. So, if you see the outer layer here, right? This is the outer layer. It's kind of container, right? Which have a batch, multiple batch step. Batch step can have a batch aggregator, right? So, batch job is nothing. It's a container where we can place a batch step, batch steps, and the batch aggregators, right? So, that is nothing as the batch job. Okay. So what are the things you have to like define batch name, what steps should run, how records are processed, error handling behavior. Let me go explain this. So if you click here, you can see the certain property, right? So you can provide the name. You can say max failed record -1. What does this mean? Even if single record fail or if any number of record fail, it should not stop processing. It should continue processing. If I say 10, if if I have 1,000 record and if 10 record got filled at that position, the job will stop. Okay, so I will just say -1 only. You can process in the order sequential or round robin fashion. If you want to process one by one, you can do that in the order sequential, or you can use the round robin. We talk about the batch block size. So what is the batch block size? So if you have a 1,000 record basically, right, and if you are dividing by 10 basically, right, so it will create the one batch of 100 records basically, right? So I will say explain that basically. It's let me open the notepad, or let me open my presentation. So here, for example, I have 1,000 record. If I divide by 10, so I get 100 records. So it will create a batch of 10, which have 100 records basically, right? So that is what I'm saying. You create a block. By default block size is 100. So which is like a good block size, which is a tested and like which is recommended a block size. In case if you have a number of records are more, you can have a more best block size basically. So what about max concurrency? Max concurrency means like degree of parallelism. So it means the two thread will run at a time. So what will happen in our case? So if you have a 10 batches, right? So it will read the record from two batches. If I define max concurrency equals to 2. So it will going to record, it will going to read a record from the two blocks, basically two blocks, right, at a time. So that if I define a 4 as a max currency, then it will read the record from the 4 blocks basically, and each block is of 100 records basically, right? So that is what a batch job input. So accept the incoming payload, right, then split into the record, right? So what happened here? So whenever a record comes into the batch job, right, so it automatically gets splitted here, record one by one, right, and it is sent to the batch steps basically. Okay, so that's what happening. What batch job input means. Then we have a batch steps. So batch step is a place you can have multiple batch steps in a one batch job. Basically, one batch step can just accept all the success record, and the another batch step can like process a failure record. I will going to explain that scenario. So you can have a multiple batch steps such as a validate record. You can have a one batch step to just validate the record, another batch step to transform the record, another batch step to call the API, another batch step to insert into database. I generally don't follow this approach. I just keep a 2 or 3 batch step. One batch step do validation of record, transform record, and then like it add data into the other system. Then I have another batch step which will take care of all the error handlings and everything, right? So these are the two batch step I generally define, right? So let me do one thing. Let me show you. So here, if you see, this is the batch step, and in batch step, you can define the accept policy. So the accept policy is no failures or only failures. In this particular batch step, it will just pick the record which is not failed, basically, whatever input coming, right? If I define next batch step, where any record got filled in batch step, previous batch step, right? That record will move to the, or that particular record or that particular error will move to the another batch step. I'm going to explain that scenario. In that case, you just define only failures as my batch steps except policy. Okay, so this is what batch job input, batch step do. Then we have a batch aggregator. If you want to see, as in batch step, we can either we can process the record one by one. If you want to aggregate the record, for example, for Salesforce connector or Salesforce system can pick the 200 record in a single payload. So here I define my batch aggregator size as a 200. So here I'm doing transform. Then I'm sending that once 200 messages was aggregated, this request will be sent to the Salesforce. It will create 200 record at a time. In this case, it will just create a single connection with your Salesforce. If you are processing record one by one without aggregation, it will for 200 record, it will create 200 connections to the Salesforce. So you can use the batch aggregator to do the processing faster, right? To optimize your number of connections, right? And like they, for some of the system there might be some kind of limitation. It doesn't accept too many connection at a time, right? Or they have some kind of governance limit at their end, basically. In such cases, the batch aggregator is very useful component. If I define 200, it doesn't mean you have to do it 200. You can do it 2000 also, because for there is a limitation of Salesforce API. They can accept 200 object or 200 account in a single payload. Okay. Okay. So generally, like fine, okay, we have seen this. So like how we can define the best size on all these things. Basically, the measure the average record size. Small is less than 5 KB, medium is 5 to 20 KB, and large is greater than 20 KB. Then identify the CPU cores. So if we have a 4 V cores, so generally it depends on like how many V cores you have. Like if you are deploying your best process on the 4 V cores or 2 V cores, then your max current into like 2 into that number of V cores. So if you have a 2 V cores, then 2 into 2, 4 max concurrency. Then you have to choose the batch size. Basically, you always start with the batch size equals to 100. Max concurrency, I will just say go with 2 into CPU cores. Of default, you can keep it as a 2 and adjust based on the memory CPU. So you can just define your small payload will be less than 5 KB. So you in the see generally if you are processing million of record, your payload will be never in KB. But what I'm saying 5 KB means, so the single object it should be less than 5 KB, then it is known as a small. If a single object is between 5 to 20 KB, then medium. Greater than 20 KB, it considers a large. Then you can identify the CPU code. Choose the best size. Always start with 100. And if you want max currency, you can just start with 2 or equal to CPU core. Then adjust the based on memory and CPU uses, right? Then a record is nothing, is a single item for the original input, like one customer, one order, one product, which I just explained, right? So basically, like in one JSON, there can be multiple account. The single account is a known as a single record. So that's why I'm just saying for that particular single record, it should be less than 5 KB, then consider as a small. Okay, then I already talk about the batch aggregator. I will just avoid this. And on complete phase, I already talk about at the end, like on complete phase, if you can define some kind of notification, or even you will get the report where it will say how many record has been processed, how many failed, how many success. So those kind of report you get it, and whatever you want to do it with this report, you want to push it to some other system. If you want to email that to some kind of business stakeholder or anyone, you can do that. You can define those things on the on complete phase. Any question?
Nothing in the chat so far.
Okay. Let me go to next slide. So key factor that affect the best size and the concurrency, right? So if you have a more record, right, then you can have a smaller batch size plus higher concurrency. If you have a fewer record, like less records, right, you can have a larger batch size and a lower concurrency. Why I'm saying that, like just for smaller, like for more records, just keep a smaller batch size, right? So maybe if you have a millions of records, just try to keep the smaller batch size, right? And then the high concurrency. For fewer record, you can just keep a larger batch size and the lower concurrency, basically. Okay. The larger record example 100 KB each, then the smaller batch size. If the small record less than 5 KB, then the larger batch size. Okay. Concurrency should not exceed CPU cores. Generally, I will say it can, if you can just multiply 2 into CPU cores, right? So that many threads. Available heap memory, larger batch size, more memory use. Okay. Small heap, small batch size use basically. Okay. So that's how you have to, these are the factor affect the concurrency and the batch size. So each batch job instance is broken into batch blocks, which I already talked. Like if you have 1,000 record, if you are defining batch size 10, so it will create 10 batch of the 100 record each basically. And if you define the max concurrency equals to 2, so two blocks will be processed at a time in the parallel. Okay. So I will give one example. Batch size, simple rule, batch size equals to total record divided by CPU cores into 2. So if you have a 10,000 record, 4 CPU, so it should be 10,000 divided by 4 into 2. So it can have a 1250 per block. So right, so it can, this will be your batch size basically. Okay. Batch size in the sense like one batch can have up to 12,250 records basically. Okay. But MuleSoft default block size is 100 record, which is usually optimal. But generally, there is a no such as a formula. Like it is, you need to just try out with a different options. Use this particular logic, right, to come up with the right exact base size. Always start with 100, which is default and which is generally optimal basically. And max concurrency, as I mentioned, it's a 2 into CPU cores, right? Recommended a small record less than 5 KB, right? Default base, you keep it as a default base size and 4 to 8 threads per week, or right? Work well with the API integration and simple DB load. Medium 5 to 20 KB, you can just reduce the base size between 50 to 100, right? And max concurrency can be 2 to 4 threads per week, or right? Best for medium size JSON and the CSV rows. Then we have a large records where you can have up to 10 to 50 like KB, right? So sorry, you have a greater than 20 KB. The reduced base size to 10 to 50, like you can have up to 1 to 2 concurrency, and it, because it can, like you have to keep the small batch sizes for larger number of, or for large record, because it, like, because if you are not doing that, it can create a heap memory pressure or OOM cases. So to avoid that, for the larger record, just keep the batch size smaller. Okay, this is how you can do it. So basically this is how you have to follow it basically. Okay, so as I already discussed in my previous slide. Okay, and these are the some error handling we will going to talk about that. Okay, just keep, I will keep this for later. Any question? Okay, let me start with some kind of
Wh-
demonstration. Yeah.
One question we have, like, at what point do you actually take network capacity into consideration?
No, right now I like Srinivas, like here, like it's network. Generally, we are not taking the network capacity. It's, as I mentioned, right? It is kind of trial, and you need to do some kind of try. Like, you need to come up with some different block sizes, basically, right? And you need to try it. Like it can change from environment and network to network, from infrastructure to infrastructure. There is no such formula where we consider the network latency or anything. So you need to test it out. You need to come up with, you need to do some kind of different kind of, like you need to test with a different kind of workloads, and you have to come up with the right block size basically. Okay, so we don't
So
consider.
Jitendra,
Yeah.
I understand we don't. Anyway, you're going to be testing based upon the size, but in your formula or calculation, you didn't say anything about the network latency at all,
I
and so
no,
that's why I
like,
was asking.
yeah, we are not considering network latency here, Srinivas. Okay, so it's like network latency can like it can be different for different system. So that's why I keep on mentioning, right? We need to try. See, these are some default parameters which I've talked about, right, Srinivas? So you, as I mentioned, it is kind of like you need to do some kind of testing or in your environment, and then you have to come up with the right block size. So you need to start with 100, then you just 120, then try with 150, or you may also decrease, like for large payload, you can start with 10 block size, you can go up to a 50, right? In case if it's if you want more, you can just try it. So we see, this is formula not given by anyone. I generally use, like, whatever I am using, just I'm saying that, Srinivas, like it is not formula where like it was described anywhere. Like, yeah, it is like kind of you need to try and test to come up with right block size and right max concurrency. But you can start with this particular formula, because for me, like I've used this formula and it worked well for me. Okay. So yesterday, like sorry, on day 5, we have created this kind of batch processing. Basically, we have a listener transform. We have created the batch tab, basically, right? And it is creating the account into the Salesforce, right? And here, this particular batch tab is just accepting no failures, right? Now, in case if this particular batch tab some record got failed, and I want to log, or I want to do some kind of email processing or any kind of thing, right? So I will add one batch tab basically here in under the batch job, right? I just added that, and I will just give the name to batch step basically. uh, what I will say, account processing batch step, right? And here I can just say error processing batch step. Okay. And here I will just change accept policy to only failures, so it should only accept a failures basically, right? And here I can do some kind of transform message, I can put some kind of transform message, right? So here I can just say rename generate error payload. So let me go to that slide. So generally there are some kind of data weave expression provided. So batch is successful record. So if you want to see like whether it is successful record or failure record, so you can use this particular syntax. Is fail record with it will like whether whenever anything coming into batch failure, it will say whether it's failed or pass, right? So you can just use this particular expression batch colon is fail record, batch failures and failure exception for the step. So you can have to pass the step name here, and it will say what kind of exception generated by that particular step. You can just log that, right? Get step exceptions, get first exception. So what is the step exceptions basically, right? So you can use this particular syntax. So basically return a string exception in which key are the name of the best step in which current record has failed, and value is the exception itself, right? Of get first exception, it will return the exception for very first step in which the current load has failed, right? If record hasn't failed in any step, then it return the null basically. Batch get last exception. So if you want see, so here it will get, if you have a multiple steps, and it will like if you want to read this exception from the first step, right? So it will you can use this get first exception. If you want to read exception from last step, you can use the get last exceptions. But if you want to read the error from that particular steps, right, where you can pass the name as a as a string, you can pass the batch name here basically, right? So that's what you can do it. So let me build that. Okay. So I can just say transform message, I can just say JSON, and here I can just say step exception, right? And I can use this, I have already copied somewhere, right? Let me find it out, otherwise it's difficult to write it. Yeah, so I will just copy this. Okay, so I just put this here, right? So, and I have to pass the best step name. So whenever any error generated in that step, right, I want to log that. I will copy this and I will just pass this. Okay, best step. I just want to this much. I will just say save all. And here, if you see in my system API, I am introducing the error. So I'm just giving a wrong path here. Accounts one basically. This is the wrong path. So it will going to introduce the error. Okay. So let me go back there. I will just say logger, and I can just say log error payload, and I can change the log level to the error, and I can just save it, and let me, okay, it is already running. So it ran at 11:28. So let's wait. Let me clear the console. And here, like this is my request. I will just send it. I got response. Here, see, here it thrown the error, right? And you can see this particular payload has been posted, and you can say, see whatever error has generated, you can see it here. HTTP local post on 443 has been filled with 40 not found, right? So this kind of error has been received basically. So what happened, like, so basically what will happen in this particular scenario, even it is like, even it is keep on process, it will keep on processing the record, because if you see, I put that -1, right? Max field record, but in case any error occurred, it will, like, it will send that error to this particular batch step, error batch step, but it will keep continue to process the other records basically. Okay, so it will, and you here you can define the logic what you have to do with that particular error. Either you want to log it somewhere, or either you want to send the email with that error. You want to aggregate all the errors, so you can use this aggregator function to aggregate all the errors and just send at the end basically. So those kind of things can be taken care in this particular step. So make sure to process the error, you have to pass this as a on failures basically, except policy as a on failures. Okay, any question? Now let me do one thing. So I already have a one file. Okay, so here I have a batch size, and let me do one thing. I will set one variable. Okay, I will in set variable, I will just say set start time. I can just say start time now. Okay, I will just save this. Then, like, I can just say set variable here. I will not say set variable. Instead of that, I can use logger component. Okay, and the logger I can just say percentage DW 2.0 output application slash JSON, and I will just say now minus vars dot start time. So let me check whether start time is correct. Yeah, start time now, and this is now start time. So I'm just calculating how much time it took. Okay, and let me see the batch size. Okay, I will just keep the batch size as a 10. I will save it, and let me change that path, otherwise it will fail again. Let me stop and start the application. Okay, it is deployed, and let me send the request. I want to see the time taken. Okay, the record loaded. Yeah, here how much time it taken. I can see it somewhere. Yeah, it's PT 17. Something around, it took around 17 seconds, right? 17.433 seconds. Okay, with a best size of 10. Let me check if I increase the best size. I think it will be not much difference because the number of records are less. So let me do one thing. First, let me go to Salesforce and remove all the record. I want to delete it because it may have created a lot of record. I will do the mass delete. Then I will just decrease the best size. Okay, something owner. Okay, so we have this much of record. Okay, so that's fine. Let me go and let's increase the batch size to something like it will not so much difference because records are very less. Okay, let me save this and let's see if it's redeployed. Okay, I'll send the request. Okay, it has been processed. Let's see how much time it took. It just took 3 seconds, right? You can see the difference with the number of increasing batch size, right? Previously, it took 17 seconds. With increasing the number of batch, like it took 3 seconds, basically 3.6 seconds, right? So there is a, as I mentioned, for small record, always keep a larger batch size. Small record in the means like if the size of record is smaller, right? So keep the larger batch size. If the size of particular record is more, right, then reduce the block size. That is the simple formula you can use it basically, right? So you can see the drastic difference, right? So previously it took 17 seconds, it has been processed in 3 seconds now. So right, that is the that is how you can just make sure, like if you have small records, then define the higher base size or keep default as 100, right? In case if you have a large payload or large record which is more than 20 KB or 30 KB or maybe, right, so in that case you just keep reducing your batch size. Okay, I'm any question on this? So we have covered like how to handle the errors, like how to create a best size, how to process a best size and create the best size basically, right? I have one more file with 2000 record. Let me process that. Let me try it whether this is right or I don't know. I have one file. It should work. Let me search and let me delete all the records which is created. Delete permanently. Let me pick the file with and downloads. I should have, or I should have file in untitled. Yeah. So let me see if I can use this file. Okay, can we can put this here. Okay, so I have a 2000 records file, and let me do one thing. If I increase Mac concurrency to 4, let's see in how many times it processes 2000 records. Or also, I will do one thing. So I will create a file of like batch of 200 record each. Okay, let's see how much time it takes. So we have a total record 2000 successful 2000. It took 14 seconds, which is good, right? So to process the 2000 record, it took 14 seconds, right? So let me check. Go to Salesforce, search it. I will not going to delete records now, otherwise it will take. Yeah, we have all 2000 record. Let's do one thing. Like there are 100 record, I can delete it. We just now we will reduce the like Mac concurrency and like we will see. I may have to do for 20 times, I think. I think it's allowed 250 records at a time. Yeah, it's done. Okay, I deleted all the records. Let's play with this like make concurrency. I just want to showcase like how you can also try, when you are defining these things basically. I will just keep it 2 and 100. So like nothing, like you just have to try with multiple batch sizes, So, and generally you can start with the formula which I told you. It took almost 15 seconds, not much difference, but still like the previous happened 1 second or 2 seconds earlier, basically. So yeah, so I told you the 100 is the best size. It is default and it is like optimized one. Basically, you can always start with 100. Okay. So now, like we have completed this process API. I want to do something more in the process API, right? So we talk about for each, we talk about batch processing, and we talk about the parallel for each. I have uploaded all the code in our GitHub repository. You can pick that code from there. Okay. And like here we talk about how we can have a multiple batch steps and everything. We already talk about everything here basically on complete, how to define, how we can enable the parallelism, how to define the best size, everything, right? Now what we have to do, now we have to enhance this particular process API, like how, what I'm trying to say here. So basically we have to complete our process API, right? So I have like account details, right? So okay, it should be get, should be none. Okay, so I got this account information, then I have a related contact, right? So I have all this information, and what I want to aggregate this, right? So I have two different call, one to contact and one to the account. Then finally I want to merge this result and send it back. So I want the result like that. I will show you at the final. I want result like that. It have a account and all related contact. So this is like account and all related contact I need it basically, right? So let me get started. What we will do, the first step, we always create a RAML. Okay, so I'm going to create a simple RAML for the process API. So I will go to design center. Okay, so I will just create a new API specification. I can just say maybe I can call Salesforce process API or account process API. Okay, I can call like account process API. This is my create API. Okay, so here you can just provide description. So you can just say this API will fetch the account and related contact details from backend system. Okay, so this is the first thing. I will keep this as a simple API basically. So we have already talked about. Then I will just define a method called accounts. Then I can provide some kind of slash account ID, need account ID as a query parameter. Description, fetch the account and related contacts detail. Right. Then you can define the HTTP method. Then you can define like 200. Okay. So 1 minute. Details. Okay, just a minute. It should not be 200. The first tag come as a responses. Then body will be application slash JSON. Okay. And here I can define the example. So I can just create a new folder here. Examples. Create. Another example, I will just say new file. I use the other. Generally, you can use the RAML also. But as I discussed last time, why we go with this. So I can just say account response example.json. Okay, I will copy the example which I already have it. Okay, so this is my example, and here I can simply I can go there. I can just say include examples slash account response example.json. Okay, so that's what I have to do it. So I already done that. I can just say publish. So account slash ID, right? Just say publish, and I will just publish as a stable version. Okay. So now it got published, and I can go to this particular process API. I can right click and I can just say manage dependency, manage APIs. Here I can just click on plus from Exchange. Okay, I just have to log in it again. So here I can just search for like account process. Yeah, this is my account process API. I can simply add it. Can just say finish. Okay, and I can simply say apply and close. Yes, I want to generate the automated scaffolding for this. Okay, so you can see the automated code has been generated, and we have a one method for this. The code has been generated. So now what I will do, I can create one more configuration file. So I can just say mule configuration. I can just say account slash account implementation. Okay, here I can use subflow or flow. I will generally use the flow. Okay. Now what we have to do, we have a two APIs, right? So as I mentioned, we have a two APIs in our system API which we have created in the previous session. So one API which give me a account detail, right? And the another API endpoint which give me a related context detail, right? So I want to use these two API, and then finally I want to aggregate this result, right? So I can use the scatter gather at the same time. I can send the request to the account, and as the same time I can send the request to the contact also, right? And we will going to talk about what are the different things you can do with a scatter gather. There are a lot of things can be done with a scatter gather. Okay, so we're going to talk on that. Okay, so I just close this. Just want to know if you have any question.
There were No, but I have answered. In case if you want to answer for
I don't like all you can try. So I will give that code to you. So I will suggest like you can try like that batch size with like yourself and you can just check it out. Okay. Like Venkat, like when you say external variable, what does this mean?
Outside of the batch process.
No, extra. What external variable in the sense?
Like I mean that uh, create one variable of yeah, outside of the batch process. How
You
can
can
I?
use you can use vars dot variable inside the batch, whatever you are defining
Okay.
externally.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Hello, sorry, I was on mute. I don't know how I gone on mute. I don't know. Okay. Can I? Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. See, the scatter gather is a component which is used to multicast your request. So you can send your same request to the multiple system at the same time or in the parallel, right? So basically, if you have one request you want to send to the Salesforce, or you want to send same request to NetSuite, or you want to send the same request to other system, so you can use the scatter gather, and whatever response coming back from that, you can gather that response, you can aggregate that response, and you can process that response basically, right? So that is what a scatter getter does for you. Sometimes it is known as a multicasting also. So where like you are sending your same request to the multiple systems, right? In our example, what we will do, we're going to send the request to fetch the account object and to fetch the related contact object in the parallel, right? Then we will merge the result. So it does a parallel processing. It allows multiple flows and API calls to run simultaneously, not one other after another. But you can run scatter gather in the sequence manner also. There is a possibility. I will show you how you can do it. This improve the performance and reduce the response time. It collect the response. So basically, whenever you get the response, you can just you get an aggregated response. You can just transform the response as you want. Basically, it support the multiple routes. You can have up to two, three, or many route based on your integration need. Fail safe response behavior. So basically you can define whether if one route got failed, you want to fail your entire scatter gather, or you just want to fail that particular route and you want to consider response from other routes. You can define that. You have to use the try catch. I will show that particular thing also. non-blocking and efficient. It is not blocking any threads or anything. It doesn't waste time in waiting. Whatever threads available, it pick those thread and it start processing. Right? Maintain the input message. It doesn't change. It doesn't transform your input message. It will keep your input message as it is. Okay, so let me explain with better, right? So if you define your max concurrency as a 1, right, in this case it will run in the sequence manner. The first route will process first and the second route will process later, right? That's how it happens. So it will go first route, second route, third route. So by don't keep max concurrency equals to 2. If you define the max concurrency equals to 2, right, so if you have a 3 routes, so it will process first 2 route in the parallel and third route will be processed later once first two is completed. But if you don't keep anything, everything will be processed in the parallel. Okay, so I just put a transform message. I don't know why this error is coming. Sometimes this is not a real error. Sometimes you get that error, but yeah, it is not. I can just say get account. Okay, so now I will use the request component. Okay, I will use the second request component. Okay, I want to use the logger component also. Okay, here I will just say fetching account started. Okay, log start flow. Okay. See, I have a habit of putting the name every time. Okay, just here I will just say a logger and flow. I can copy this as it is and I can put it here. I can put logger fetching account completed. Okay, so again here I will just say log flow start fetching account contacts started. Completed log flow end. Okay, so let me first request. I will just say request retrieve accounts. Okay, so I already have created a connection with my system API when we are doing the batch processing, right? So we can use the same connection here. So you can just click on drop down and use the HTTP request configuration. Then get method, and let me go back to my config dev. I think I already have an account path, right? So I can just copy this. I can just say account ID path. I can have a slash account ID curly bracket. Then I can have a contact path. I can just say slash account ID slash contacts. So these are the three properties I've defined because I don't want to hard code it. This thing generally I don't do it. I generally use my configuration file. So you can hard code it also because this generally doesn't change. But in case like if you want to keep everything better way, right, you can do it this way. So I can use what was the syntax. So it is sfdc.sapi.account ID, right? So go back to request. Just say sfdc.sapi.account ID mark. Okay. Now I have to define the URI parameter. So my URI parameter is account ID in the path, right? And I can read it from vars dot account ID. And you can always keep default as a empty. So yeah. So that's what you can do. Now I have to pass two header parameters, which is a client ID and the client secret, right? So to use the process API, I have to pass the client ID and the client secret. I already have a syntax defined in my batch processing. I can just say console. Okay, let me go there. I can go to header and copy this. Okay, and go to headers, and I can copy all this client ID because it's same because it's the same API, right? And then in same way, I can call this contact request retrieve context. and I will just say account contacts. Right here, I can just say curly bracket sftc.savvy.contact path. Close. I have to define the same header here, right? And I just want to define a query a URI parameter, which is account ID, which we have stored in the vars dot account ID, and I always say default is empty. Okay, so this is what we have done. Now we have already this is there. Now next thing, I can just use the logger component at the end, right? And I can just say percentage DW 2.0 output application slash JSON. Okay, so once it, like after saving, it should deploy it automatically. We will talk about other things. Okay, so batch like parallelism, how we can process sequentially, all these things. So let me stop and it's run. Yeah, save it. Yes. So let me copy this ID, go there. I can just say HTTP localhost 8081 slash API. This is my process API part, accounts slash this. Okay. Send it. So I got this 1 minute. Okay, I have done one mistake. I have used the flow, but I haven't called there because it gives some default response which is defined in the transform message. So I have to use the flow reference here. Otherwise, it will how how it will come to know what things needs to be processed. I'll just drag and drop flow reference. Right, and what is the not Salesforce create account batch? Yeah, get account implementation. And here I will generally write invoke this particular. Okay, let's save it. Okay, so just I clear the console. Let me send request and let's see what I got. See, I got this particular response, okay, which you can see the JSON somewhere here, right? So you got, okay, I can see the response here, but it's not looks good, okay, but we can make it good also. So here, just I want to show you, we can talk about that because here you can see log 8 proper JSON, but it contains a lot of things, attributes. You can see the zero. So this is the response from first route, and the one, this is the response from the second route, right? And if you see the logging also, I just want to show you something. So like fetching account and contact, they both start in the parallel basically, right? You can see it, and we get the response in the parallel. If other thing, I want to show you one thing, okay? So which is important. So what I will do now, I go to scatter gather, and I just change max concurrency equals to 1. Let's see what happens. We will talk about that payload, whatever coming in the output, that's fine, like, so but in logger you can see the proper JSON, but we have to convert later this to this payload basically, right? So we'll do that, don't worry. Just go to console. Let's see if got deployed. Okay, now send the request. See, this time request took some bit of time, right? Because it happened in the sequentially. I will show you where it happened in the sequence basically. See, the fetching account started, right? You can see it. Then fetching account completed. Fetching account contact started. Fetching account contact completed, right? This is happen in the sequence basically, because I define max concurrency equals to 1, which means you can start one thread at a time, or one route. You can just work with a one route at a time. I will just change it. Now the other thing I want to show you. So I will just uh, change this to the wrong resources, right? Let me save this and let's see what happens now. So anybody tell me, like, what the route will definitely fail, right? What will be the output? Whether see, one route will be success, this particular route will be success, and this will be fail because I gave the contact one, right, which is the wrong path. So what will happen in this case? Okay, let's see. Just send it. You will get some kind of errors basically. So it should give the error. It gave me error basically saying this particular method not found basically, right? 404, and but it haven't considered the response from the first route also. Even the first route is successful, but it haven't considered that, right? I want to do one more thing so you can see the better output. I will just put a transform message here. You can just say payload. Okay, so once it get deployed, I will send so we can get the better output here. Now send it. Okay, we haven't got it, but it's fine. It should get it. Okay, I will see that. Okay, I will improve that error. So don't worry about that error part. So here you can see we get some kind of error basically, and we haven't got any successful response from them, right? You can see. But if in case if I want to make sure even I get one route successful, I want to see the output for that. And if anything got failed, let that I want to see the error for that, right? So for that, what I can do, I can use a try catch. I can drag and drop a try catch here. I can break all this component into try catch. Okay, I can use the try catch here also. I can bring all this component. Okay, and now under error handling, I can use on error continue. On error continue. Okay, here I can use on error continue, and I can use a transform message in case any error comes. Right, I can just say error, comma dot description. That is enough. I don't want everything. I can just say error message. Same thing with this. I can draw transform message. Just save this. And here I will change the output bit. Okay. So now what I want, account and contact. So I can just say account, and I want to read the account from payload dot. So we have a saved in the 0 position, right? So I will say 0, and what I want, I just want payload. Okay. So that is my account payload. I want a contact payload. I put contacts. Contact output I will get in the first position. So I can just say payload dot 1. Then what I want the payload. Okay, so this is how you can read it. So I keep as it is. Just say save all, console. Okay, I think it's saved or it is deploying. Let me send it now. I got the account. Okay, this time. but contact with, I got this error basically. Contact, right? This is the error, correct? So now I will rectify my contact to write. Okay, let it get deployed. Let it be deployed. I just corrected. Okay, when you correct the this file, it doesn't works. So let me do one thing, like, I just put one space somewhere here, so it can redeploy. Just clear this. If everything is okay, we get a two account and contact both. Okay, this is my account and contact both. I got that, right? But the response is not according to what we needed, right? So what I will do, so we have something called data wave playground. Okay, we can make use of data wave playground, so where we can form our data wave transformation. I use the data wave playground. Okay, I can just put it this as this basically, and what output I want, I can just say see that output. So basically, where is my output? I can close this. I don't want this also. Yeah, this is the output I want. I want, like, in account, I want name, like age, communication, everything like that. Okay. So either you can define it here also. So in this particular thing, okay, or even like you can define your data view. So whatever you define it here, you can copy there. So I will define it here only. I'll use these two bracket. Then what we needed, I need account and then name, account number. Let me do that. And so here I can put account and I can put a curly bracket. Then I can just say name and I can just say payload dot, where is name? Account name is there. Yeah, name. Okay, it will start generating, like, it's payload dot account dot name, because it's account here, right? So payload dot account dot name. So we get that or I will just say zeroth index. So at a zeroth index basically, right? So I got this name, comma. Then let me open the this particular thing, account number, industry, website. I can copy this as it is. Okay, I can copy this payload as it is, and I can just do one thing here. I can put as it is. Okay, and I will start changing this. So account, and from name I can just say payload dot account zero dot name. Okay, so that's one. Then here I can copy this same, comma, account number. Okay, I always put default value. So if sometime if there is a null, there is a chances of failing also. So I just put default as a comma. Okay, I can just put this as a dot industry dot website dot phone and dot number of employee as a as number. Put curly bracket here, and I can give default as a zero. Equal revenue and Here I can just say rating, again default. You want state, billing state. I'm just copying the city, billing city, billing state, billing postal code, billing country. It's there. Billing country, billing country. Okay, I can put as a billing country, but it is not there. You can just put as a empty for now. It's fine. Same thing with the shipping. Okay, for shipping, do we have a shipping address? Shipping straight. So this is a good tool. So whenever you want to do the development of data, we can use this tool. This is available online. It is MuleSoft only. Shipping postal code. Shipping country. Okay, for contact, I will remove everything. I don't want this much. Okay, so I just keep one. I will remove this also. I don't need. Instead of that, I can just say payload dot contacts map. Okay, so I iterate through because there are multiple contacts and I want to iterate through what I want, right? So the first value you can always access using dollar dot contact, dollar dot what is that first name, again default this one, right? And then you can just say dollar dot last name, default empty, dollar dot email, default empty, dollar dot phone, I think default empty. So you can see the output is also generated here. Basically, you can see the required output. Everything is generated here. So let me see why first name is giving empty. See here, here I can see the first name is coming empty, right? Because here I've done some mistake. It should be F capital. So you can see the first name is populated. So this tool is very useful, and now I can copy this same code, right? And I can use one more transform message here. I can just whatever output generated for this, it will be input for this transform message, and I can use this simple, right? So I'm just saying here aggregating the response, then I can just say it here final JSON response final account or account. Okay, right, this error is coming. Let me check. Is there anything? No, there is no issue. Let me save all. Let me go to console. Let me clear this out. Okay, go back here and just say account. See, I got the required out in output, right? Whatever output required, I got that required output here. You can see it here, right? So like that, let try with another account. I can go to the account object. Now we just put the age communication. I want other also. Like, let's see. I want to get my password. Okay, let me get. You can try with some accounts. So I'm typing config. Hmm. Okay, so I can just pick all accounts. Let me. This is all I created. Okay, so okay, so let's pick this. Or let me do one thing. Let me pick the better account, whichever contacts. I can just say, okay, let me search for one Burlington account. Okay, I have this particular account. And let me copy this ID, account ID, go back to Postman, just send it. So we got a Burlington account number, like if there's a rating or anything, like, so there's a no shipping address, so we get everything as a empty. We have a contact address, so we have a billing address, we get those information. Okay. So whatever things are available for that account, we will get it. Otherwise, it will populate as empty. If you want to make sure, like if it's those values are null and you don't want it, so you can use the if condition. I will going to show it later. Any question on this? So we have created, like, our process API also. So we have done the orchestration also. So basically the job of process API, where it can call the system API, it can do the orchestration, some data transformation. So we have seen right here. So it able to do the orchestration, data transformations, and everything basically. Right? Any question? But we haven't handled one thing. We haven't handled the error basically, right? Correct. So we need to handle the error in data transformation also. So for that, what we will do. So generally, if you see, let me go back to my here and let me create some kind of error now, and let's see what response we get. We haven't completed yet our process API. Let me stop and start. Okay. So I'm going to show you one more thing. Okay. So this is very important. Like, I am able to handle the successful response, but I'm not able to handle yet error response. In case if I get some kind of error, how I can handle in data transform, right? So I want to handle that also. Okay, it is deployed. Let me send. Okay, I haven't got the proper response here because I haven't handled that error logic, right, in my data web transformation. If you see, it got filled, right? Okay, so let me do one thing. Let me copy this particular message which has been which I got it. Go back there. This data web playground. In map, before map, I can do one thing. I can put filter dollar dot error not equal to null. Mm, is equal to null, right? So something payload contact. Here we have to filter this out, so I'm trying to filter it. So payload.contact, which is right, and let me remove this. Okay, here it picked the payload.contact, which is right. And if I put another payload, let me copy that payload. Where is my data view playground? Yeah, it's here. Now it's failing, right? So here I want to put some condition. This is my payload.context. And I want to filter. Okay. The problem with error, it is not coming as an array. So what I will do, because like it requires some kind of array, because if you use the map operator, right, it requires, so you can do some correction with your error messages basically. If you go to error messages, I can put the payload, I can put this into array. So it will simplify. Otherwise, I need to use some kind of filter object or something like that. Better to use like array here in the output, right? And I can go there in data view transformation, and I can use the array here, because in contact we are getting error, so make sure the error is also using the array. So I can just say $.error is equal to null, right? Now you don't see the error, but you see the contact object, right? So what I can put here, I can put one more condition. If payload dot, let's leave this condition for now. So you got it, right? Here I can filter out this like error. If like payload dot contact, the filter $.error is equal to null, then map this, right? So this is what you can put it, so you don't get the error. Now you want to show the error also, right? So you want to make sure like you show the error also, right? So what I can do here, I can put some kind of error, comma, $.error. Okay, I can put that. But still, here I want to put some condition. Let's try what we get it here. If we remove this, then we have to remove this condition, right? So here you see, we got this error, right? So we get this error, like you can see that we got this error basically. But we want to make sure, like we don't want to display this phone number and these things empty, right? So you can put some conditions here. So either you can put at the top, if or not, if you can just put the bracket here, simple. So here I can put if $.error is equals to null, then only I want to display this. Same thing, same thing. You can put it here. Right. So here you can see like if it's only error, then you can see it, right? So otherwise it will not going to display. Let me change this payload here, and here you will not going to see error, whether you are seeing the error. Right now here you can see the error equals to null. So here I can put one more condition. So that's how you can do it. Now you will not see that error message also. I will copy this payload and go to transform message and paste it there and save all this thing. Okay, so now send the request. We got 200 okay, but for contact we got the error, this particular error, right? So now you can see the proper error has been coming. Okay, so now I will correct this. So let's test the right scenario also. Let it get deployed. Okay, when we change here, it doesn't get deployed automatically. So yeah, I will just deploy it. Guy, any question on scatter gather? Any
Mm,
question?
nothing in the chat.
It's very useful component when we work with scatter gather, right? And I try to cover everything what you can do with a scatter gather. Right? Any question? Okay, now finally I will send the request, and I got the successful contact and I found both, right? Which is good. Yeah, that's like that is what all about batch processing. So we have created a process API, right? So where we have done the orchestration between two API calls, right? Then we aggregate the response, then we have transformed the response, right? So those kind of things we have done. So we have created the process API. And tomorrow we're going to create an experience API, and we have to talk on the error handling. I don't think like 20 minutes will be enough to talk about the error handling. So basically, I can talk about few things like can anybody tell me what is the difference between on error propagate and on error continue? Anything like anybody? Yeah, Gautam.
Yeah, on error continue, the flow continues until the end, and on error propagate when in a any
So
connector or
basically,
any
like on
adapter.
error continue, if you in case even if some error is coming and you want to continue that process, right? So you can use the on error continue basically. So on error propagate basically it will like it will going to stop the processing and it will throw the error. Like it will always throw the 400 or 500 response, client error or server
Mhm.
error. In case of on error continue, it will not halt the processing. It will continue and return a 200 back to the client basically, right? So that's what a difference between on error propagate and on error continue, right? So let's start with error handling framework. At least we have some time, so I will just take 10 minutes, so then we can talk about more. So I'll create a new project.
And on error propagate, the flow stops.
Yes, I will explain with example. Error handling scenarios. Okay, I will just take a simple HTTP listener. I will stop everything here, and I will configure the HTTP listener component. Okay, just configure it. Then I will give path test. Simple, like I just creating a simple HTTP listener. And now I will use the HTTP requester. I will request to some of the URL which is not present. I will just say HTTP localhost 8091 API test. This is some kind of API does not exist. Okay, and here on error handling, I will use on error propagate. And at the end, I will use the logger component. Flow completed successfully. Okay, And in logger component, I will just use the transform message. Okay, and I'll just convert that into JSON. And you have a various attributes or various error objects available. I want to display error message. I can just say error dot description, or you can, if you want detailed description, you can say just a detailed description. Okay, and then flow, or I will simply say error status or error time. For error time, I will just use now. So now is an inbuilt function which give a current time. I can use error type. Maybe you can use error dot. What happens with this? Yeah, comma. So here you have a, like, what is the failing error type, right? So I can use the error type. Then failing component, where it is exactly failing. I can give a failing component error dot failing component, right? So this, and if you want to type a original payload, if you want to print a original payload, right, you can just say error dot, I think error message dot payload. This is my original payload. Okay, so these are the things you can do. Rename it and just say error payload. And also I will declare one variable which will say HTTP, or let's leave it, we will talk about that later. I will save this and I will just run. Let's see what happens. Okay, so this, let me open HTTP localhost 8081 slash, I think it's, I give the test, right? Check test. Okay, doesn't matter what method we are using, just send the request. So it's saying like the connection which has been put, right, it got failed, but we haven't got the JSON response back, right? If you see, we haven't got a JSON response back here, right? And I want to define some kind of error status. I can define some kind of error status here. I can just say HTTP status, okay, and I can just say 500. But I haven't got this particular payload, right? If you see what happened here, I send the request come to listener. Now it go on to request the pay, the request haven't found, right? So instead of that, I can give some URL which is like, which is there. Yeah, I can not this one. Yeah, I will copy this and I will give a wrong content. So whatever request come to listener, it go on to HTTP requester. Now, on request, it through the error, it come to on error propagate, right? And now on error propagate will return whatever, like, payload we have defined, right? And whatever variable we have defined, HTTP status. But what happening here, why we haven't got the JSON response, I will tell you. You go to listener, and if you see the responses, and if you go to the responses in like error response, right, it is printing its own error description. That's why we got this. So simply we have to change this to payload. And like for HTTP status, we have defined as a vars dot HTTP status, and you can keep default as 500. Okay, now we save it. So now you will get the exact payload which you have defined in your error message. So you console this. If you want to return a custom error payload, so that is a changes you need to do. I will send, not sorry, here it is my, here we got a proper JSON message which we expecting. We got the error message which we have defined. We got the error type. We got the error type, right? We got the error type which is very big. We can simplify it. Then we got a failing component where it is failing, right? Then original payload, right? We got an invalid client or secret some kind of error. So that is the original payload which has been thrown by that particular API. Right? Those kind of information, those kind of details we got it, right? Which is good. So now here, like here you can see it. So okay. So now I will change this to on error continue. What will happen here? I will just say on error continue. But it haven't printed this log successfully, right? Now my question, anybody can tell me what will going to happen in this scenario? And just change it to an error continue, rest of the parameters, everything same. What will happen in this case? Anyone? Just guess it, right? What will happen in this case?
You'll get whatever you put in the logger.
Okay, let's say. I don't think so. We will not. Right, we get only the here 200. Right, we get a 200 status, which means this flow is successful, but we got the error message and we haven't logged anything which we mention it here. So generally I mention on error continue, it should continue, right? But here it haven't happened. There's a trick for that. I will show you that trick. So what happened here? Request came to listener, right? Listener send the request to here, and then the request, then here we got the error, and the request came to on error continue. From that particular, once it came here, right? The request will never go there again. From here, it will generate 200 and it will throw the error. Okay. So now what I have to do? I will create a subflow. Not subflow, I will create a flow. I call this as subflow, right? And I will bring this request inside this. Okay, and I will bring this on error continue here. Okay, let me do one thing. Copy this. Okay, I can remove this from here. So I'm copying here. I brought the request here, and I will use the flow reference in the first one. Okay. Now what will happen? Will it print this logger component?
Uh, Jackie, can you see your flow reference once again, please?
Yeah.
That should be flow.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see what will happen with this particular flow? I will explain you. So now what will happen? Request will come to here. It will call flow reference. It will call this particular flow reference. This particular flow reference will send 200, right? To this flow, right? To this flow, it will going to send 200, right? So for this particular flow, the subflow is successful. So it will print this logger. Let's say it. Okay. So here you can see the flow completed successfully has been printed, right? Now what I can do, I can just say transform message, and here I can just say JSON, and then I can just say status, and just say success. Okay. Red console. This is very important, right? So when you need to understand, like this is all questions you get into your certification. Now I got a status success. even it is failure, right? So what happened here? The request come to listener. Now flow reference will call this flow. This flow will execute this request. It got through, but here it's on error continue, which means it will generate a 200 here. Now the request will go here. It will definitely going to send this error message here, but I use the transform message here to override the message came from the subflow, right? And it will override this particular payload and it will log that. Now other question. I use on error propagate here, right? And I use some kind of transform message, right? And I'll copy this same as it is. Here I can declare a variable called http status, which is equal to 500. Save this. Now what will happen? Any guess? Will it be same behavior or it will be change in any behavior? It will be change in behavior.
At least give it a try, anyone.
Nothing is wrong, nothing is right. You are learning.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Nothing, it will remain same. Okay, the output will remain same.
I don't think the
Because,
error on error propagate will ever fire at all, right? Because you just went
yeah,
to
correct.
continue.
Yeah, because from continue, because from this subflow, right, it will send 200. So for this particular flow, the subflow is successful. Then on error propagate will never get executed, which is correct. Thanks for answer. Yeah. So let me send the request. We got a status successful, and it will going to log the message also. Great. And even I use on error continue here, doesn't matter. What it this particular flow is giving, that matters basically. Right? So that's what we have to do it. Now I have one more scenario. Let me bring my request here. Let me remove this flow reference. Right? Let try catch block. I bring this try catch block inside this, and I use the on error continue. The try catch block. Alright. So I can use the same, copy that same transform message here, and let's see what happens to this request. We got a success. Why? Okay. So here what happened? So the request came to listener. It gone request. It failed. It came into the error handling of try catch block, and from here it is saying everything like it throws the 200 to for try catch. It is successful. So it get executed this transform message and this particular logger. Doesn't matter what you have defined in your error handling in case of try catch, right? So that's how it works basically. Okay. Yeah. So guys, like we will going to talk more about the error handling in next session tomorrow. Okay, so I try to cover most of the scenarios for error handling, like what are the different things you can get. These are the like you generally get a question on the certification exam on this particular scenarios. You get such kind of scenarios, and you need to identify what kind of error it will generate, basically, right? So you need to identify this. So please keep in mind, like whatever we've discussed, like it's very important. And even if you are using in your project, it become very important. What like when to use on error continue. You may have a situation, right? For example, whenever you are doing the batch processing, I I have explained already in while explaining the for each right loop, where if some record get failed, I just want to continue to process, right? So we have placed that for each block into the try catch, right? And we are putting the on error continue. Even a single record is failing, it keep continuing till the till it is not able to process all the records basically, right? Yeah, try scope, try catch is just for the error handling power, Chandrasekhar. Yeah. We'll talk about the raise error if you want to raise custom errors and all these things, right? We're going to talk about those things also.
So Jackie, one question. So where you basically add the subflow, instead of that, if you add a private flow, would that be any different, or is that result going to be the same?
No, no, what is a private flow like? We don't have any private flow here, right? So like I haven't got the answer. Like in you, like we don't have a concept of private flow basically. So the
Okay.
generally the flow we call as a private, which is in other application, right? Here we don't have a concept of private flow. Basically, we have a flow or subflow. We have only two things, right? We have a subflow or we have a flows basically, right? So the problem with subflow, we cannot add a error handling, right? If you drag and drop subflow, right? So there is a no mechanism where we can add the error handling. It will inherited the error handling which is defining in the main flow from where it is got referred, right? Can you just explain like what is your question, Srinivas, right? So I don't think there is any concept of private flow, Abhishek, right? If I remember, I don't.
Uh, Jackie, if a flow don't have a source, then that will be a private flow, like the
Okay,
one which you
okay,
have shown. That
okay,
one.
okay. You are talking about that, Srinivas. Generally, like
Yes.
you're talking. Yeah. Okay. So, what is your question? Can you just tell me so I will try to answer your query?
So let's say if you have two flows, and instead of a subflow where you add, if I basically call another flow that doesn't have any source, and you actually did the processing there and the
Mhm.
error handling there, and then return that error back to the main flow, would
Mhm.
that be the same, or is there going to be difference between the s- from the main flow to the subflow, or main flow to the private flow, if it is called?
See, for subflow, like, see, if you are talking about subflow, right? For subflow, it will inherit the error handling from the private, like from the main flow, right? From it is got referred basically. Now, for example, if I tell you, right? So, if I tell you here, like you talk about, like, let me give you one example. Okay, this is not.
Uh, uh, just to add, Srinivas, what Jackie explained earlier, that was example of private flow only.
Okay.
So,
See,
again, yeah, Jackie.
yeah, just a minute. Where is I lost my flow? Just I'm just checking. Like, where is my flow source basically?
Uh, Flow source. Which one you are talking about, Jackie?
1 minute. Okay, I think it's scroll on the right side. Okay, this is like okay, listener. Yeah. So like Srinivas, your question is like that, right? So I will create one more private flow, right? And I just bring this request here, right? And I just remove this and I use the flow reference here. Okay, this is what flow reference here, and here also I define some kind of on error propagate. Okay. So now okay. So let's consider like here I just change the code 501, and here we have a code 500. Okay, and here I just change something. So I remove this error type. So let me go to console. Let me deploy this, and then we will see. Okay, clear this. Let me send the request, and let's see what happens. Okay. So if you see like Srinivas, like I think this might be the answer for your query. So here like I have one private flow like this, right? And like I got the request here. Calling this. I have a flow. I got the request here, and then I'm doing the referencing to one of the private flow here basically. Then here I have a HTTP request which got failed, and it have its own error handling basically, which is like on error propagate transform message with HTTP status. Now the error gone here basically. Now error has been gone here. So now what will happen? It will going to override, right? So whatever error we have defined into the child, right, it will get override by the parent. So whatever we define into the parent, that will be showcased in the output. You can see the 501 output, and whatever like error is there, right? We got those things basically. That is what you are asking, right? And it get override basically. The child error got override with the parent errors basically.
Yeah, it's. But if this was a subflow that is basically called, then that would be different, right?
Yeah, for
Compared to
subflow, yeah, I will go with subflow. For subflow, we don't have a mechanism to define any error handling, right? So for
okay,
subflow, it will by default override the error handling from the main flow. So whatever error handling, for example, if I take this to the subflow, I remove this, right, and let me go back to flow reference, save it, and here I'll just change this code to let it be, doesn't matter. Okay, and just send this. See, we got this error, right? And which is from the main flow because we subflow doesn't have any error handling mechanism. So it will override the main flow error handling. So from here, it will generate the error. It will go here and it will just use this on error propagate from the main flow. Okay.
got it. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just stop the